So this kind of microphone, if I was recording, it would record evenly in a circle around me.
Thank you very much for coming and joining me today, Anne. And for everyone that doesn't know who you are already, this is Anne Childs. Her title is Radio Broadcast and Technology Consultant, and she is a whiz with anything technological and anything sort of audio. She's your go-to person, and she is amazing. Her knowledge inspires me and just makes you realise how little I know. So I'm delighted that she's here today, and I can get some nuggets of wisdom for myself, which will be the same kind of nuggets of wisdom that all of you, I'm sure, want to know as well. So thank you very much, Anne, for joining us today.
Thank you. That was, oh gosh, I feel like under pressure now, Dusty. That's amazing.
Oh, not at all, not at all. So as we were chatting earlier, before starting to record, and I was saying about some of the issues that I have, and that some of the audience are going to have the same ones as well. And that's really kind of just understanding the whole thing that is audio. And the thing that I talk about a lot with my audience, and that to just really reiterate now, is if the audio is bad, then even if someone clicks onto your video and starts watching, if they really can't hear you properly, they lose interest immediately. It's really the one thing you need to make sure you get right. Because even if the picture is wobbly, or you haven't got a good, very good background, or you're looking however you're looking, if someone can hear you well, they'll persevere, or they'll just not watch the pictures and they'll still get the content. But if the audio is bad, straight away they've gone. So it is really important, and it's one of those things that is a bit of a minefield, because it is, it's techie, and we all get a bit scared of techie, myself included, because obviously when I'm out filming, I have professionals that do all of that. So because I'm here in my home office environment where I don't have all that techie support, I still find myself thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. So if I can ask you, I guess the first question is, how would someone like me make sure that they're approaching their audio in a way that makes sense, and what kind of options is it okay to use? For example, this mic, and I've got some kit here that I've bought over time. So what's the best thing for us to do? Should we just buy the bare minimum, £10, £5, clip mic that you can get these days off Amazon, or should I invest more? Should I even have a clip mic? What would your advice be?
Well, so much of it depends on what it is that you're actually aiming to record, and how serious you are about it, and how much budget you've got. And I think when we're starting something new, there's kind of two categories of people, aren't there? There's the ones who are just sort of so terrified that they'll find any excuse to not do it at all. And then there are the people who are the perfectionists, who think, I can't possibly start until I have bought all of the perfect kits and saved up for, the most expensive microphones and cameras in the world, and I can't possibly do anything until I've got those. And so I think it's about assessing where you are and what you're trying to achieve. And so I often say to people, just do the first 3 of whatever it is you're trying to do with whatever you've got. Because the first and most important thing is that whether you enjoy doing whatever it is you're making. So if it's a Facebook Live or a YouTube video or a how-to guide, or even a podcast, make 3 with whatever you've got, because you can always delete them later and hide them from the world again. It's fine, but you need to know that it's something that you are actually going to enjoy doing. And from there, you can then work out what kit's appropriate. So the kind of microphone, for example, that you might need if you're going to be recording just you doing a Facebook Live in your office is going to be very different from if you're recording outside and you're interviewing 3 people and you're going to be by a lake or something. So you need to have the right piece of equipment for the job that you're doing. But the most important thing is what you've already identified, is to actually think about the audio in the first place, and not just assume that it's some thing that you can bang on in the end or sort out in the edit. Editing isn't magic. You can only work with the material that you've got to start with. So think about how you're going to get your audio recorded, how it's going to sound, what you need to capture. If it's a Facebook Live, it's obviously the person who's doing the live is the most important thing. So you have a bit of planning about what sounds you're going to need to capture before you begin. Would probably be my first thing.
So that's perfect, and I love that. Just use what you've got for
to start with,
yeah,
and then upgrade. But don't think that you've got to rush out and buy, just because someone else has got a piece of kit that they're raving about. They might be doing something that's very different from what you're doing. And hopefully with your help, Justina, people are going to enjoy doing YouTube videos and Facebook Lives and all kinds of different pieces of video content. But you don't want to have gone and sunk £1,000 on something and then discovering that you hated doing it to start with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's very much what I say as well, that just use what you've got to make the video. But say we've done that, and so that you do want to, so I mean everyone's going to start off with something like this.
I mean that's the thing. It's kind of, if you're lucky enough to have an iPhone, then the microphone that comes with it is pretty decent. If you're just doing a Facebook Live, you can, instead of if you're just doing a live and you're not talking to someone. So at the moment, because we're talking to each other, I need to hear you, so I've got my headphones in. But if I just was doing a live and was just broadcasting out and didn't have anyone else on the line, I could maybe get a hair clip or a safety pin or something and pin my microphone to my top so it was slightly out of the way. You could even put a piece of foam shielding over the top of that, and you've got a relatively good clip mic, or you might hear people call them lav mics, which is short for lavalier. So that is a good way of starting off for a lot of people, is just using the microphone that comes with their.
That's a great idea. I never thought about just clipping it on. I have been known to just you see quite a lot of people actually just having the one and the other one's tucked away, making it slightly less, or hiding it under your hair.
The problem with hiding it in your hair is if your hair starts moving and rustling.
Yeah.
And you can also get little so you can get, if you're using it a lot, or if you're indoors you're probably okay, but you can buy little foam covers. So this is a different microphone, but you can go online and buy little bits of foam or sponge or something to just put over the microphone to,
and that can
give it a bit of protection.
Over, because sometimes it's hard to work out. I should stop touching this because you'll hear.
Yeah, I know. So keep thumping it.
It's hard to work out which bit of the audio is actually being recorded. So you would just put something like that kind of foam just around all of it.
Yeah, if you were finding you're getting interference, the easiest way of knowing how any microphone is recording is to make sure you've got some headphones in and to talk into it and to talk round in a circle, and then you'll know it sounded louder when I talked here versus here.
That's a really good tip, because I have done that also with this mic, is when I've been just recording some voiceover and I've just had this one, and I've or sometimes when I've been not talking to someone in person and I've just kind of done this, because I do trial when I'm doing a professional video with voiceover. I do a draft voiceover to cut to before we invest the money in a professional voiceover. So there's loads of videos I work on that I've got my voice reading the professional scripts, and I find myself doing this, but it's really the sound is really poppy and obviously very raspy because it's so close.
But it sounds a lot, when you were coming in closer, it did sound a lot better there. So it is also about getting the most out of the microphone that you've got. And some of that will depend on how the microphone, I don't know if you want to get into pickup patterns yet, but how the microphone actually works. And a lot of it you can find out by just listening and having a play and seeing how it works with your voice as well, because different people have got different range of frequencies that they use and different ways of speaking, and so different microphones can be good for different people. But try not to get too perfectionist to start with. Maintain your quality, don't put anything out with terrible audio on it, but we're learning all the time, so be prepared for the fact that your knowledge will increase over time, and you don't need to know absolutely everything in order to allow yourself to make your first video.
That's really true. Saying that, then, when the people are making some of their first, let's say
Yeah.
They kind of ready to do something. Maybe they just got past that first three. And one of the things that is an issue where you really can no longer use a mic like this is because, you know, you're limited with how far away from your recording device you can be. And when you're recording pieces to camera, you don't want to have this sight, and you don't need to hear. So I've got, you know what, this is one of the cheapest, I can't remember how much I pay for it now, clip mic that I use. It's still got quite a short cable, so it's not that I need to get one with a longer cable even so. But that was the thing that then we're confronted with. We think, okay, so do I spend £10 on whichever brand, whichever make of clip mic, or do I spend more money? Is it worth investing more? You know, am I wasting my money if I do just go with these really kind of low cost clip-on microphones?
So it depends. I mean, there are some good brands. So I've got a Rode Smart Lav. So this is a lavalier clip microphone. So it's a little bit like the idea of this one, but it's better quality. And actually now you can't get the Smart Lav. There's only the Smart Lav Plus available, which is a much better microphone, and the price has come down enormously. So I think they're about £40 to £60 or something like that on Amazon. So and I genuinely just have this in my handbag, and it's designed to plug into my phone, or I can plug it into my laptop or whatever. So if I do need to do a quick live, I can just use that, and I've got something.
And it's okay for that to just be to curl up the wire. You're not going to damage it, and you can just
well, I mean, over time, you know, take care. Oh, sorry. So over time, take care to make sure you're always listening to it. And if you start to get a lot of interference, it's a sign that the cable is going. But for a microphone that's 40 quid, 60 quid, if that lasts you for 2 years, then you're doing really well. And at least you've got it on you. So if it's something that's small enough, it goes down into a little bag that's like this big. So you can just pop that into your bag, into your pocket, and then you know you've always got it with you. So I think you've got a couple of things here. You've got, how do you upgrade your microphone if you're doing something like this and you're doing a live? Well, if you enjoy doing your lives and you're finding that you want to get a bit more audio quality, maybe invest in a mic. Sure, do one that's got a slightly longer cable on it, and then the Smart Lav Plus is a good one for if you're just doing lives and you're starting out. I'm not talking about if your profession is to make broadcast quality films, you're going to be looking at stuff that's much higher level than that. But if you're using video to support your actual business, and your business is not making films, then you're going to be fine with things like a Smart Lav or Smart Lav Plus.
And so that's about £40 to £60.
Yeah. I mean, so the other thing is that it's hard to tell. Sometimes you can get things online that are 12 quid and you'll find people in groups who say they're amazing, but it can be a bit hard to tell unless you've had a recommendation from someone. The only other thing is sometimes if you Google, you can find people who've done YouTube videos where they've done recordings with different microphones, so you can have a listen to see how they sound and how they compare. But yeah, I mean, the point at which how many times do you want to buy a £5 microphone and decide it's not very good versus just paying 40 quid and going, that'll be fine?
Yeah, so, guilty.
There is that sort of thing. And then if you are going really pro and you know that you're going to be using this an awful lot and you genuinely enjoy doing video and it's converting really well for you and you're in that kind of income bracket, then Sennheiser are pretty much the go-to for those kind of wireless microphones.
That's what we use on shoots.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm going to be buying them for doing videos like this yet. I think that Rode option sounds great, because what I wanted to do which is what I've done, and I guess I'm just using what I've purchased, is to get the start at the bottom and see how the quality goes. So because people are always asking me that question, so and this is I think the one that I'm using at the moment was in that, it was not much over £10, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But
and it's better than just shouting into your laptop, because one of the things that you are trying to prevent, so the reason that today, because we're talking to each other, rather than me doing a live. So if I was doing a live, I wouldn't use this. I'd use my lavalier microphone. But because of how the audio is being sent and received, I need to be able to hear you. And it's really important that I hear you going into my ear and not I hear you with the sound coming out of my laptop speaker. And the reason for that is if the sound comes out of my laptop speaker, it's then going to go into my microphone and then be sent back to you. And then you're going to get the sound sent back to me, and it's going to come into my laptop speaker and sent back to you. And then you're going to start getting an echo.
Right.
And it's going to sound awful.
Creative.
So because it's just sending the same sound back out and round and round and round and round and round. And so that's why when we're talking to each other, I need to make sure that the sound is not coming out into my laptop speakers, because it's going to get picked up by my microphone again. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, it does. Totally.
So that's what you're trying to prevent. So this is why I sort of say you need to think about what it is you're doing. If you're interviewing people, you might need a different microphone setup from if you're just doing a live on your own.
So one of the things that you might consider then, and then I guess you also, are you interviewing in real life or are you interviewing on screen? But to me, the next option or the next consideration on the mic choice is, if it's not a clip mic or radio mic, I know we haven't spoken about that yet, but it's still the mic on you, is do you use a well, we would use a boom mic if we were filming, or the mic that comes with your device. A lot of my audience are filming on their laptop or on their phone or on their iPad. So they just use the mic that comes from that. So can they get something that clips on, which is an in between?
So this is a really interesting one. So I am very interested in a thing called Mojo, which is mobile journalism, which is about how you can produce content entirely using your phone, or at least you can record it on your phone and then you can edit on your phone. You can also send it to be edited elsewhere. And so there are more options coming for Android, and there are a whole load of Mojos who specialize in Android, but up until this point it's been pretty dominated by iPhone users, because it's easier to be consistent with the iPhone, because only Apple make them. So it's easier to get programs and apps that help support mobile journalism. So if you are filming, the camera on your smartphone is going to be probably better than the camera on your laptop. So if you are filming, then actually using that is a really good thing to start with. I mean, again, this is more your area, Justina, but I'm sure you tell everyone about using the back. The main camera rather than the front one. Although even the front ones are pretty good if you're in daylight. And sometimes you need to, if you're doing a Facebook Live and you need to see the comments,
that's unfortunately
that's how it goes, right? So again, I can plug my smart lav into that. I think we've got a number of different things going on here. So if you're talking about filming, you were saying about not if you need to be further away from the camera. So you can either get the I can't remember the number of it, but Shure does a version of the clip-on microphone with a slightly longer cable, or you can get an extension cable. So then you can be further away and it's okay. Or you can film on your whichever phone has got the best camera. So maybe you've got a posher iPhone, like an iPhone 7 or something, and that's got a really good camera, so you can film on your better camera, and then you can use an older phone in your pocket with your lavalier microphone, and you can record the audio onto that. And so long as you can sync them together later in the edit. So you can ignore the audio that's coming off your filming camera, and you can record the audio onto your not so good phone, or you can use a radio mic, which is probably going to be more expensive. It depends what you've got knocking around. The other option is that you use a microphone. This is where my drawings are going to come in. I've done some really bad drawings, but the other option is that you can use a very directional microphone. It's often called a gun microphone because it looks like a pointy gun, and that is designed so that the pickup pattern goes a very long way but in a very narrow field. So if I was standing by the door behind me, and I had the microphone pointed at my mouth, it would pick that up, but it wouldn't pick up anybody who is talking over this way necessarily. So it kind of, again, this is why it comes back to think about what it is that you're doing and what it is you're trying to achieve, because we're kind of bombarding a load of information at you at the moment, and you won't need all of these microphones. You just need to pick what it is that you're doing, and it might be, again, that you use one method of doing it until you've hit whatever target you want to hit, like 1,000 subscribers, or you've made £2,000 or whatever, and then you know that your upgrade path is going to be the next thing.
That's the tip of using a second phone, which a lot of us have kicking around, to record just the audio. So you're kind of creating your own radio mic in a way. Except you're obviously, it's the only complication there is that when the person gets into the edit, they need to sync the audio and the visual. So if you're thinking to do that, that's where the clapperboard comes in.
And if you don't have a clapperboard, literally just clap.
That's the one. And that's a lot of the time, actually, that is what we do. This only gets used when we're doing lots of shots that look really similar, because I do a lot of recipe videos, and so we need to mark which recipe it is. And obviously we're not using audio when I'm doing those, it's just for the marker. But yes, the clap, a lot of the time that's all we do. You just in front of camera, people, not off camera, you do the clap, because the moment your hands meet, when you're syncing your audio and your sound, that's where you get one big spike of your audio, and you match the frame of the hand meet with the audio spike, and then you've synced your audio. And then you have to just be careful that when you're editing that it remains synced, because if you make a cut and you drag the image over and you forget to drag over the audio as well, you can get into all kinds of trouble. But everyone at this stage is only worrying about doing quite simple edits. So I think this would be something that can still be achieved. And it's I think that's a great tip. I really like that.
And there are specialist apps so that you can do audio editing, or you can film using your phone. And there are good recording apps on this. But you can start off by just using there's a default voice memos app on your phone that you could use, and if not, there's loads of things you can download for free that give you more processing and stuff.
Brilliant.
So there's lots of options, if you start getting into it. But again, it's that kind of thing. Do it 3 times and then work out what you need to change, and then maybe that's where people come back to you, Justina, and go, oh, I've got a bit stuck with this. How do I sort that out? The other thing that in the smartphone world, again, this one only works on iPhone, and really I should be on commission for these. I'm not, but I've gone about them so much. They're so good. I guarantee, Justina, that you're going to rush out and buy one.
I think
so
I am.
This is the Shure, SHURE, MV88. The MV88, and it comes in a little case. So again,
we like
bag friendly.
I have a case.
Have you got one of these?
No. Just in case.
And so this is lovely because it clips onto your phone, and there is a little app inside. And again, I will come and talk about pickup patterns. Maybe we swap this around. So there's a little app, and in the app, so I can plug this in whichever way around I like. So I can have it if I'm doing reporting, like more radio reporting, something like that, I can hold it this way. If I'm filming, or if I'm doing a voiceover, I could have it 45 degrees. If I'm filming, I can have it pointing this way, and obviously I can always plug it on the other way if I need to.
So is that mic quite directional?
I'm glad you asked me that. This is where you're going to wet yourself. Okay, so in the app there is the option to change the pickup pattern of the microphone. So I basically, and also I can take the windsock. You can get if you're filming outside, you can get a windsock for it. Also, I can change the directional nature of it by twisting it. So effectively, this means that I've got 5 or 6 microphones in my pocket.
That is amazing.
And so again, I need to talk about pickup patterns. But the reason you might be like, why do I want to change the pickup pattern, Anne? What do you want? The reason for that is that how microphones work is that they pick up sound, and microphones are designed to pick up sound in a different way, and the way that they pick up the sound is better for different kinds of audio recording. So on this one, I can change I can make it directional. So if I was doing that thing where I wanted to film myself, but I was standing further away, I could set this up on my phone, and obviously I would have it.
And you do.
I'd have it plugged in this way around, wouldn't I? So that I could be using the using the right
camera.
And then I can change in here how wide that's pointing, or I can swap it to be a different kind of microphone entirely, so with a different pattern for pickup, depending on what.
But it is worth then doing a sound check to make sure you stay in that. That I have said, that's one of the things that my cameramen are the most telling me to, or nudging me and telling me I'm doing wrong most time, because I do a lot of interviews, and I'm holding quite often the boom mic on the handheld, and they're directional, and they're like, Justina, because I'm so focused on the interview, and my hand starts going off, and really, so when you're talking directional, it really is directional. So that is something to really keep.
Have a practice, and maybe with a friend you can mark out a spot on the floor. I have seen people do this with selfie sticks as well, that they can plug things in. And you've also got sort of things that you can steady holding your camera if you don't have a tripod, or this plugs into a tripod. But again, that's more Justina's area. So I probably should have talked about this first then, pickup patterns. So now we'll see why I work in radio and not in graphic design. So these are drawings of microphones, not willies. Okay, so as we can all see, these are microphones. We can all see that that's a microphone.
It's definitely a microphone.
Definitely a microphone. So you've got two kind of main types of microphone pickup pattern, and again, this will make sense in a moment. So this sort of microphone here is what we call omnidirectional. If you're really good at is it Latin or Greek? Omni, kind of omnipresent. Omni means in all directions and all around. So this kind of microphone, if I was recording, it would record evenly in a circle around me. And so that can be very useful if I'm picking up the atmosphere of a room, or if I'm doing an interview with somebody, actually, especially in a radio context, because I can have one microphone, and if I hold it between me and you, it would pick up both of us. But the downside is it would also pick up if a dog barked over there, and if a lorry kind of pulled up over this side, it would pick up in an even way between us. So omnidirectional microphones really can be quite good. You might find that your lavalier microphone is actually omnidirectional, because they're quite small, so it doesn't matter which way up you put them on. And then you get directional microphones. So directional microphones record sound in one direction, and so the super directional microphone is what we've already talked about, which is that gun microphone, where you put that onto a camera, and it's like I'm pointing and I'm recording the sound in this way, or maybe I'm recording the sound in this little narrow channel in that direction, but I can record a long way but in one very thin strip. So it's almost like this is where I'm pointing, that's where I'm recording, so I'm not going to be getting much sound from over here or over here. So that's really useful if I'm recording on a camera, and I want to just have the person who's talking to the camera, and I don't want the sound from the side, but completely hopeless if I'm trying to get the sound of the room. And then you have a kind of in-betweeny one. It's another directional microphone, and it's called a cardioid microphone. Cardioid because the pickup pattern sort of looks like an upside down heart.
Right.
So it's directional, but it's not super directional. So it doesn't go as far. So it's really good microphone if you're doing reporting for radio, because you can still talk to someone and you can still interview them, but you're not getting so much of the sound from everywhere around you. And you also, if you're doing voiceover work, you will find that the microphones you use are cardioid, because if I'm doing voiceover, I want to be recording this stuff, but I don't want to be recording any noise that's coming from behind me. So I'd have a pickup pattern that kind of came out and round like that, like an upside down heart. And you, again, if you were listening when you were recording, you'd be able to hear, if I'm talking more over this side, I'm going to go quieter, and you'll be able to hear where the microphone is picking up the loudest sound. So don't be afraid of your equipment. When it arrives from Amazon or wherever you bought it, plug it in and work out, what is this pickup pattern? Where do I sound good? If I go nearer to it, does that sound better? if I'm further away, is that better for this microphone? You've got to really understand how your equipment works for you and for your voice, and also be aware of how you're speaking. So you can get problems with words with P and T and B and F and S, because they can sometimes cause interference. So you start to learn over time whether you need to have a shield on your microphone or whether you need to lean backwards slightly if you're using certain words, but that comes with practice. And the other thing to say is there is not one sort of unicorn microphone that will do absolutely everything for you. Damn. I mean, this one's pretty close because you can change the pickup pattern, but I often get people who say, I want to start, they'll suddenly drop in the conversation if they're planning to do video, that they want to do a podcast. And again, if you're doing your first 3 and you've only got this microphone, then have a go, but do not think that the microphone that is your clip-on lavalier microphone that is good for your Facebook Live is going to be sustainable for a podcast where you're interviewing multiple guests. It's not designed for that job. So don't just think, oh, I've got a microphone so I can definitely do anything that involves recording sound.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because I'm sure there's people that are maybe listening to this who either have a podcast show or they're thinking about having a podcast show. So yeah, knowing that if you're going to get started, like you say, maybe the first 3, use what you've got, but then after that, upgrade to some other thing. What would be?
It's a bit like shoes as well. Like you could theoretically use your party shoes to go for hiking, and to do ballet in and to do football, but you're going to have a better time. And you're also asking about what to do if you haven't got a microphone, if you can just use your phone. Again, it depends on your phone. If you've got a smartphone, probably you can. For certain things, use the microphones that are on here. There are multiple microphones on an iPhone, for example, and the main microphones are all on this end there where the lightning connector is. Again, you can get pop shields, so you can buy them from places like Canford Audio, canford.co.uk sell them. They're really not expensive, and I do know some people who put a pop shield over the top of their phone, and they can use that as a recorder. I mean, you can use it without if you have to. Again, it depends on the context of what's going on. If you're a news reporter and this is all you've got with you and something has just exploded in front of you, you're going to use it. You're not going to say, oh, I can't file the story because I haven't got a microphone, but there are times when you want to plug in something a bit more substantial.
Yes, yeah, totally. And talking about sound, in that last 5 minutes, you might have heard my dog snoring next to me.
Oh no, I can't actually.
Oh, that's good. Maybe hopefully it won't be picked up in the final version. But yes, my dog is sleeping here and snoring. Every now and again, there's a snort. So I'm hoping that hasn't come across, and that this mic is.
And that's your story, and you're sticking to it. It's the dog.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sticking to that. That's brilliant. I love that, and I have done that sometimes talking into my phone. But then if you're using your phone to record your video, then the audio quality isn't going to be as good. And because I'm guessing this is, well, when I've tested it out using it, I noticed a huge difference between plugging in a proper mic, rather than using the audio coming straight off of this. But
yeah, and also again, when you're filming, you're further away. Then so this microphone's got to struggle quite a bit, because remember, it's designed for being quite close. So again, in a more of a radio context, I can get in closer to this microphone than you can when you're filming. So yeah, it's always better to, if you can, and you're planning to do a Facebook Live, to plug in a little lavalier mic or something, like this MV88. I mean, the MV88, I think it's about 120, 130 quid. Right. But considering you've got 5 microphones in your pocket,
that looks like a good investment.
And yeah, if you're filming outside, you can get a different accessory that has more of a bit more fluffy, more like a row coat fluffy thing.
And the purpose of that, if anyone doesn't know, is, so do you want to explain when you have the muff over, why is that different?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Wave your muff about. Yeah. So this is your microphone. which if you were somewhere very, very quiet and without too much extra background noise, you could use on its own. But it's always nice to have a little bit of a protection. So this is made out of foam, and so it just stops a little bit of the kind of noises from getting in to your microphone. So if you were recording and there were little bumps and sibilants and pops and things like that, it's not going to stop all of them. If you come right near a microphone and go, it will hear, but it stops a little bit of that sound coming in. And then the really, really fluffy ones that look like dead cats, they're often called dead cats, aren't they? They're designed for if you're recording outside somewhere windy. So again, Justine will probably have more of those to wave around than I have. But if you're recording outside, that's a whole different ball game, because wind can really ruin a recording, and you need to make sure you're listening to your recording all the time, because you might not realise.
Yes.
Oh, and aeroplanes.
Oh, yes.
Don't try and edit anywhere. If you live near Kew Gardens in the UK or anywhere near a major airport, always do live. Don't do pre-recorded programs, because if you need to edit and there's a huge amount of aircraft noise going on, it's fine.
Yeah, we just stop recording in between when we've been in that situation where there's been airplanes.
But sometimes an aeroplane in the background during a live makes sense to your ear. But if you have to cut and then go again and go again, it jumps in the background, so it's actually more distracting, because you, instead of going meow, you get meow, and that's more distracting for your ear than if you just went with it. But completely, yes, it's loads of fun. And I think that again comes into do your own editing for a while, even if you outsource it to someone else and they actually do it for releasing to the public. You will record better if you've edited stuff, because you will hear all the things that you're like, oh, there's a funny noise there, and then next time you'll kind of know to look around the room and see if there's a noisy atmosphere. Don't be afraid of telling your guest to move somewhere else, or telling your guest to turn off their air conditioning unit, or telling your guest to move their dog out of their study, or whatever it is.
No, I have been known, several times, when you've invested a lot in the shoot and then suddenly someone in the garden next door decides to mow the lawn. Or
excuse me.
Yeah, well, we have to, I have to have petty cash and just go and say, if it's someone who's there to work, so well, I'm going to give you 20 quid, can you just go off and have a cup of tea and take your lunch early, or something like that. And because you can't, your whole, you can have a large slot of time ruined, and as much as you might try and prepare for those things, there's always random stuff.
And I think it comes back to that preparing. So not getting people frightened about all the things that might go wrong here, but it is that preparing, and there isn't some magic thing. There are things we can do occasionally in the edit, but there isn't some magic thing that is easier than just recording it properly to start with.
Yes, absolutely. And the same goes for visual. So we could, TV and radio people, we could talk about this forever, I think, and moan about lots of things. But to get back to topic, so we've spoken about just using the kit that you've got to record your audio. And then we've spoken about the next level of investments you might go to, and where you have to really think about what the purpose is behind what you're doing to match the kinds of audio equipment you get to the kind of situation and you're going to be in when you're recording that, what the purpose is, and what kind of the difference between whether you need a mic which is going to be the directional or the omni one or the hearty one. See, all the technical terms.
Cardioid, yeah.
That's the one. And we touched on, and then you were talking about how we can, if you have a second device, you can record your audio separately. So when I say device, I mean a phone. You could record your audio straight into a phone and have that in your pocket and record the visuals off of your second, more up-to-date phone or iPad, perhaps. So then you could have a gun mic on board of your video recording gear.
And Rode, for example, make a lot of stuff that's pretty decent, and And again, it sort of depends if you're using a camera or if you're using a smartphone. And there are slightly more things available at the moment for iPhones, but don't worry, if you've got a decent Android phone, you can still absolutely do this recording into phones as well. It's totally fine. Loads of people around the world do it. There's all sorts of there's Filmic Pro is a really good app if you're starting to get more advanced in your filming, and Ferrite is an editing program that's just on iOS, but there's LumaFusion, which is an editing program for video, which I think goes across both. So there's loads of options.
There's, and although I find it really hard to edit off of a device, off my phone, even though I have a huge phone. And I do, I have done that just so I know how it's done and what it's like. But I'm maybe just spoiled with having such a huge desktop.
Well, it depends on your context as well. So, for example, if you're doing a film because you're creating a video for a food client, or you're doing a series of videos for your training, then you can absolutely film it on your phone and then transfer to a laptop to do it. Because it doesn't matter if you take an hour to ingest that material or whatever. If you're out in the middle of a war zone or a riot and you're trying to get something back to base, then being able to cut a sequence quickly on your phone, or posting straight to social. So a lot of the phone stuff isn't necessarily to do with journalism. It's about people are consuming so much content on their phone. So actually, if you create it on a phone,
well, I know a lot of people who want to do all their editing on their phone.
So it's totally possible. But it's sometimes people, if you've got a really long, complicated thing, then editing on your phone, you could do it. But why? But if you're just doing a quick top and tail and you haven't got anything else, or you just want to for giggles, again, it's fine to play with your equipment and to enjoy it and to push it and to see, we were talking about making do with what you've got, knowing at what point you don't want to make do anymore, knowing when you can make do, and then knowing, do you know what, for this circumstance I'm pushing it too far, and my life will be easier if I use this piece of kit. And it's quite an individual thing, but just make sure you listen back to your content, listen back to what you've recorded, record a test piece, don't just sort of put it out there and then expect your audience to deal with what you didn't deal with.
Because there are, if you have
it's not fair.
No, absolutely, because I've listened to podcasts and videos where, particularly with interviews, where the levels are so different that I've just had to stop. So,
and if someone's getting up and having to run, you're blasting their hearing out and they're having to adjust the volume on their phone they're listening to, or you're having to run across the room to turn their radio up and down, then that's like putting something out that's full of spelling mistakes or isn't printed clearly. You wouldn't do it. So, don't beat yourself up if you've got something with different levels. You can learn from that, but don't be putting that out every week, because it's not okay and people will stop enjoying your content.
Because audio is it's the one thing that if it goes wrong, it's going to turn people off straight away. Whereas if I was recording this with, you couldn't see my eyes like this, but the content was good that you could hear, you'd still listen to it and you just think, oh, that's a bit weird, can't see her eyes. But if you get the audio wrong, then everything's out the window. You've wasted all that other effort that you've put in.
So I just wanted to briefly touch on a couple of things you can do in terms of how you set up your room to make your audio good, and also some common problems that you might experience. So in terms of your room, just as Justina will teach you all about how to make sure that the lighting's good and you haven't got really weird distracting things like your mother's plate collection in the background, you can also think about how you're setting up your room to record. And again, make sure that you've got some headphones so that you can monitor what you're recording, because what your human ear is hearing and what your microphone is hearing might be very different. So you might discover, so go to a room that's quiet if you can. You don't want to be trying to record your interview next to someone doing a pneumatic drill on a building site. Also make sure that you haven't got any music going on in the backgrounds, like a radio or something like that, not only because it's distracting, but also bear in mind you might be violating quite a lot of rules for YouTube and Facebook in terms of copyright. So I know someone who got banned from Facebook for a while because she kept playing uplifting pieces of music and she was dancing along to from her phone before she started her lives, and it's like, well, you haven't paid for that. So you might think, oh, it's lovely to share this stuff, and it was totally done with nice intent, but it was like, well, you haven't paid for that, so you can't do that. And Facebook just like, we're going to ban you.
Exactly.
And thankfully she got
minefields, musical royalties.
Yeah, but just think, it's stealing someone else's stuff, right? So don't do that. And also, if it's just in the background, then it's going to be annoying anyway, unless you know what you're doing. If you're somewhere that's very, very echoey, try to move to a different room is the quickest and easiest way of solving that. But soft furnishing of some description, so cushions, a curtain, anything like that that's going to soak up the sound, because very flat surfaces reflect the sound, and then it just sounds really echoey. And again, your microphone will help you here, because you might be in an echoey room, but if you're relatively close to your microphone, you might be hearing on your headphones everything sounds okay, even if you know that the room itself is quite an echoey space. So yeah, don't be afraid of soft furnishings. We were joking about the fact that sometimes voiceover artists will actually, as a last resort, will put a duvet over their head to record, if they've got no other option, because it creates a very easy kind of sound recording booth. It's a bit hot, but it needs must.
I have done that. And
it doesn't work so well for if you're in vision on a video, because
no. Only the voiceover work.
If you're starting to get weird things going on your recording, so you're listening back and you're kind of going, oh, there's some weird things. If you're getting lots of pops and all of that, that is down to where your mouth is in relation to the microphone. So you think there's quite a lot of energy coming out of your mouth, and if you put your hand in front of your mouth and just go, you will feel that there's it's called a plosive. There's a real explosion of energy, and that's being picked up by the microphone. So you might need to move back a bit. We sort of often joke about the thumb to finger distance for a microphone can often be helpful. You're going to need to experiment with where you need to be relative to your microphone. If you're finding that you have got a crackly, hissy noise, it could be that the cable that you're recording with, I've just moved, so sorry if you've got a load of crackle now, but it could be that maybe you've had it in your handbag for too long, or your pocket, and the inside of the cable has just got trashed. And you can test that by plugging it into different things to see if you're getting the same issue, but it could be a cable issue. The other, if you're finding that your recording is making a kind of noise like this, that's a sign of a sample rate issue. If you don't know what that is, then and you've got that, then come and talk to me or Justina. But that just means that you're recording at a different rate from how you're editing, and don't do that. But we can move on to that at some point as an advanced thing. But that's a sign to look out for. And if you're getting a humming noise, like a really low level or a high level, that means that somewhere it's picking up on something electrical. So it could be that it's picking up on the light, or the air conditioning unit is one of my favorite ones. Air conditioning units are a bit, or that there's some ground hum going on somewhere in what you've got plugged together. And so again, that's why it's important to listen back, to listen as you record, and also to listen back, because your microphone will be picking up stuff that's a bit different from your real ears. So your real ears will help you to know what's going on in the room and where to record, but your microphone might be hearing in quite a different way. So it's trial and error. We've all had stuff go hilariously wrong over the years, but if you're monitoring it as you go, and then you can sort it out, because it's so much easier to sort it out then than it is to get your guest back.
Or if you're not might not always be an interview situation, even if it's just that you're making some video content for your website or your YouTube show. That
I'd rather find out after video 1 than video 10 that I've been recording.
Exactly, that's it. You've got to sound check before you go, because I've had that's happened to me once with audio and a few times with storage, where you've delivered it, you think, I've nailed it, I actually got it right that time. Then you go around and obviously because I quite often record on my iPad, and because I'm videoing from the lens, the actual proper camera side, you can't see all the warnings that come up. So when it says storage full, it's only when I finish and go round and didn't record any of it. And once that's happened with the microphone, I think I hadn't pushed it in properly, or something like that, something ridiculously simple, and I didn't sound check, and I recorded all of it and then went back and was like,
And just like with video, record the audio in as higher quality as you can.
Right.
And then you can always make it lower quality later. So again, if you're doing a Facebook Live, don't worry, because you're just plugging it in and you're going live, and you're just having whatever Facebook has decided you're going to have with the bandwidth that you've got. But if you are recording, then if you have an option, then record, you'll see something and it'll say something like linear WAV or PCM WAV. If you're doing it for film, you want to be at 48 kilohertz. So sometimes you might find an audio program will default into 44.1, which is an audio default standard, but you want to go to 48 if you're doing stuff for video. And if you're just doing audio, you might as well be at 48. Do not, unless you really know why you're doing it, don't record in MP3. You can always MP3 is how far techie do we want to get? So MP3 is what we call a lossy codec. So if you imagine your WAV is like your lovely big fat piece of audio that's beautiful and it's kind of DVD or CD quality, and so it's really good and it's got lots of information inside it, and so but it's quite a big file. So an MP3, a podcaster usually in MP3 is a small file, and what they've done is they've gone in and quite cleverly gone, right, I can probably get rid of that bit and that frequency and that frequency and that frequency, and I can throw them away, and then I'm going to make this little small file that's an MP3 file. And because it's quite clever, especially with speech, you're not going to really hear much of a difference. You might notice in if you're recording the Philharmonic Orchestra, you'd notice what they're thrown away. But the thing with MP3 is once I have thrown that stuff away, I can't get them back again. This is why it's called a lossy codec, because it's not lossless. I have lost. Yes, I have gone. So if I then do some more editing and I then go to save it to MP3 again, what's going to happen is the same clever process that took it from my big WAV is now going to take out exactly the same stuff again. So you now imagine that my nice file has gone to a not nice file to a really not nice file, and if I carry on doing that, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So if I record in good quality and I edit in good quality, if I then need to make a small file, I need to put it out as a podcast version of my live or whatever, the very last thing I can do is to make an MP3. And because I've got good ingredients and I just make it small once, that MP3 is probably going to be fine. Whereas if I had not very good ingredients and then I made an MP3 at the end, it would make it even worse. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a brilliant description. Yeah, that's really good. Really good.
So, if you can, again, if it's just speech and you haven't got much, most people have got quite a lot of storage on their phones now. If it's just speech and you're in a really quiet room and for some reason you need to record 3 hours straight and, then you can record an MP3. But if you've got a choice, just get in the habit of recording at a higher quality and then mixing it down. At the very, very last thing that you do is turn it into that low quality file. But if you are recording and you're going to use it later, and you have the option in whatever recording app you're using, if you go into the settings, wherever you're changing, whatever Justine is telling you to make it a 1080 or a 4K video or whatever, then change your setting. Ideally, you look for something that is, it will say WAV somewhere. It might say PCM or it might say linear, and it will have a 48 in it somewhere in the kind of sprawl of gobbledygook.
Yes.
you want that one if you can. If you're on an iPhone or something like that, you might find that it defaults into another option like AAC or something, which is a lossless codec. So if you haven't got the option for WAV, but you see something like FLAC, then that's a lossless codec. So that's better than nothing. But again, if you're dealing in that, you probably know what you're doing, and you're probably quite advanced, so you don't need me to tell you.
Yeah, I think we might start frightening people off.
But this is my thing. So this is one of the things that I go on about all the time, is that these creative things, broadcasting, video, radio, audio, they are technical, and if you understand the technology in itself is creative, but if you understand the technology, you're going to make better programs. The people who understand that their microphone pickup pattern, that this microphone pickup pattern does this and this microphone pickup pattern does that, are going to make a better program. The people who understand that they need to record in a higher quality because an MP3 is throwing that quality away are going to make a better program. You know, it doesn't have to be complicated. And I think it's about challenging yourself. Once you've got through your first three, just by whatever method you can, challenge yourself to understand why you're doing stuff, and it will actually be a hell of a lot easier, because you're not learning by rote anymore. You're learning because you understand why, and that is easier. I'm a fundamentally lazy person. I like the quick way. It is much easier for me. I can go to pretty much any radio studio in the world and make their sound desk work, even if I've never seen it before in my life, because I know the principle of how they work. And once you've done one, you kind of understand it. And I haven't just learnt it from memory, because I'm not clever enough to learn 1,000 different sound desks. So, you know, if you're, I say a lot to journalists and producers, if you're a curious person, in many senses, but you know, we go into this stuff because we're curious. And if you're doing a Facebook Live, you're curious about your audience. If you're interviewing someone, it's because you're curious and you ask questions and you want to know why things happen. So why do you suddenly feel that as soon as it's technology that you have to be frightened and you can't ask questions anymore? You know, if your equipment's not working for some reason, you're going to be able to find out why if you ask questions. It's not going to be like a human where they just haven't had lunch today and they're a bit cross. You know, your computer is going to give you a consistent reason as to why it's not working. So don't be frightened of the technology.
That's
you know,
I think
just have a go at it, and don't worry that you're going to break something, because you know, short of sitting on it and jumping up and down, you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Unless it's a very expensive lens, then you might want to take care of it. but that's exactly that, and that's where, you know, it's just play with the kit that you've got. And some of those recommendations that you've got, I think I'll add them into the description notes of this video, so people can go and have a look for themselves. But being curious, and like I said, and I think listening back and just starting your awareness journey of what's going on in the audio world, what it is that you're hearing, just be really mindful of that. And naturally, I think we'll start to, you know, you'll start to notice, oh, I can hear my clock ticking, I might put the clock somewhere else. Or, you know,
or just like you said, I think I can hear a dog snoring on my audio, so I'm just going to say, and then no one thinks that you had too many sprouts.
That's it. Yes, that's exactly it. That's one of the things.
Even if you've had too many sprouts, just say you've got a dog in the office, because you know. Well, for all we know, that's what you're doing.
Because that's the thing with audio visual marriage, I guess, where you're hearing something that you can't put into context, and your brain can't work out why. Like if you were to hear an aeroplane go overhead now, it would be a really strange thing, and it would jar in your experience of what you're seeing and hearing. If we were outside doing this, like you said, it would make total sense. So your brain kind of just ignores it, if you like. So if you know you're about to get an interruption, or if you think I'm expecting a delivery, for example, if you're doing a live, and you say, the phone. Oh, and there we go. My
phone often rings when I'm doing lives, or the family phone.
You're
just like, oh well. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Turn off. Yeah, so I put my phone into flight mode before I came, because you can get quite a lot of interference from mobile. So again, if you're doing a live, you obviously need to have your phone on, because you need to somehow transmit what you're doing, but you can get quite a lot of interference from phones, so turning them off, or at the very least putting them into flight mode while you're recording, if you are doing a pre-recorded thing.
But well, I think we've covered a lot of stuff here, and from hopefully people at whichever level you're at, there's something here that they will be able to take away, and the main thing being, don't be scared, whatever level you're at,
and plan it. So, you know, plan your next 3. What are you going to do? Is it just you're going to be aware of the room and you're going to listen back? You know, that's your first plan. And then once you've done that, you can then go, right, okay, my next plan is I'm going to try a different microphone. So then I'm going to work out how it sounds. You know, so yeah, just plan what you're going to do for your next 3 and your next 3 and your next 3, and over time you'll find that you're just upgrading all the time.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I know I have learned a lot from this chat, and I should know more than most, and I guess I probably do, but there's still, you know, because I get to a shoot and it's done, and
you have people
who do it.
So but that's also a valid thing to say, right? If you are planning to do a kind of a 12-piece really high-end Marie Forleo, you know, style launch, because you're at that stage in your business, it might be totally valid and acceptable for you to go, do you know what, this is a time where I need to hire Justina and her crew. And I'm not trying to, it's not appropriate for me to do this myself, because my business is not making videos.
Yes, exactly. Well, this is it. It's like you have to, the context of you and your video needs to fit the story that you're sharing with the world. And if you're sharing the story that I'm a multimillionairess, you know, and I've made all this money, and now I want you to buy my program for £5,000, and then the videos that are supporting the learning in the program is me sat here in my office, it doesn't really match what you've bought into. It's fine if then during that course I'm doing lives and I'm sat in my office, something like this, filming myself. One thing's that, you know, very similar, I guess, to what you say with the audio. In the audio side, I'm saying the same thing. Visually, it's got to match the story that you're telling, and there's times when the live situation's fine, there's times where you need to show that you've made more of an effort because it's just appropriate.
And getting your audio right, because so few people pay any attention, and they're so disrespectful to their audience by not paying attention to it, actually, that just by you having thought about it and planned for it, even if you're in the middle of somewhere and you know that you have to do a live and you know that you forgot to put your microphone in your handbag, even if you start off and you just go, I hope you can hear me, I'm really, you know, I forgot my microphone today, I'm here and this is why I have to do this live right now. Just acknowledging that you know that there might be an inconvenience for your audience in some way. You know, you've made that plan, so you can make yourself seem more high end and more professional because you've actually bothered to think about the audio, because so many people haven't. And there's kind of no excuse for it, really.
Yes, no, I agree. So there's so much now I'm going to take away from this. So if someone wants to, it's like me, feeling like, okay, I think I need a bit more of Anne in my life to understand what I'm doing in audio. What's the best? How can people get hold of you, and what kind of other services that you can help them with?
So my website is anncharles.tv, so ANNCHARLES.tv, and I'm on Twitter at SparkyAnnC. You know, I'm around and about. So I can do some one-on-one stuff with people if they need, but I tend not to do so much. You know, I can kind of do advice stuff and maybe a group session if people want to get together and do that. I tend to do more training with people who are already professional in the radio or podcasting or audio space. But yeah, I'm very lucky. I get to work all over the world and train all sorts of people. So, you know, if there's a kind of common theme, Justina, of people who are asking a very similar questions, then let me know, because maybe I can get a resource together on my website to help people with that, because I do get those sort of questions. And I can also signpost people on, because as we were talking about, it depends so much on the content of what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to do video stuff for online, then obviously Justina is your go-to woman for that. If you're trying to put a podcast together, then that's a different set of things that you might need to think about. And if you're doing a lot of stuff in the broadcast space, for you want to make radio documentaries or record audiobooks or launch a program or a full-scale podcast, then that's a whole different level of thing you need to think about. So kind of context is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally is. So that's brilliant. Oh well, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know we've chatted the hind legs off a donkey it feels like. And I think we could probably chat lots about all this, but we're gonna have to wrap it up. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving us your time and being so thorough and telling us so much information there and what we can do and what to think about. That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Lovely to chat, and good luck, everyone.
Thank you.